Yeah. My little bars aren't going up and down, but if you can hear me.
I see your bars going up and down.
Wait a minute. Why does... Do you? Maybe I don't
your
see
bars
my
are going
bars.
up and down for me.
All right. Okay. This is the great blooper wheel. Blooper wheel. Thank you. Silence on set. Thank you and welcome to SaaS Showdown. Thank you for joining us again. My name is Colin McCarthy.
And I'm Rose Layton. And thank you for joining us today. I hope everybody got a chance to listen to us talk about the history of SaaS and a little overview of SaaS Apps.
They were I was going to say that was they were a great introduction.
Yeah, I think it was a good overview, a good way to frame up what we're talking about.
Yeah. But us discussing our first usage of SaaS and what SaaS Ops is made me think, how would we go about choosing the right SaaS application for our business?
Well, Colin, I literally wrote the book on that.
You did? That's amazing. What a coincidence.
A striking coincidence indeed.
Excellent. Do tell me more.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we're jumping ahead quite a bit here, from the very first early days of SaaS when you basically only had a couple of options. But today you have, in some of the different market niches, you have dozens of different options for a single use case. And so it's a topic that often comes up in our community, in our professional community, and on my team in general. And, after having one of those conversations with, I think, even you were there, I started to think about, what kind of framework can we build around educating others about how to find SaaS tools properly? Because everybody, I think at some point will be looking for a SaaS tool, right? Whether it's for themselves or for their team or, even in some cases for their entire organization. And while soliciting the feedback of others is good, like that is one of the components, I think, of looking for SaaS tools, it is definitely not the end all be all of how to find the right tool for the job. And you can end up with some really bad fitting tools if all you do is rely on, the experience of one or two people in your circle. Right.
Yes. Yeah. And there's always, the terrible choice of, or the terrible consequence of committing yourself to a financial agreement with the wrong application, or choosing an application that looks initially good, but then has problems later on that you might not have thought of. So it does sound very wise to utilize the skills and the experience of other people who have already gone through that. So where would one start? What are the first things to think about and consider when choosing a SaaS application for your company?
Yeah. So I think the very first step, and I try to get people, a lot of people want to dive right into the research, right? They want to dive right into what are all these tools out there? What are, the different things we can do? I haven't even imagined everything that's possible. And that might be true. But I think the very first thing to do before you start is you need to figure out what it is that you need, right? What is the gap in the list of tools that you are aware of already? What is the problem that you are trying to solve? Because I think without that, you're not going to be able to guide your search very well. So that's the number one thing, right? So for example, I think today I was talking to somebody about, they were asking for maybe an alternative video platform or an alternative audio platform. We use Zoom in our organization. But they were asking for public webinars that they were going to do a remote interview with someone. They said that the audio quality and the video quality in Zoom is not very good. And I was like, well, let's talk about that, right? Because if that's the gap that you're identifying, is that the video and audio quality isn't up to your standard, is a new tool going to solve that job? Maybe, right? But Zoom is best in class. Like, it's best in breed for a reason. And more likely, the reason you're experiencing that gap is because of a hardware issue between you and the interviewee. And can we solve that hardware issue in a managed, sustainable, scalable way? Yes, we can. And so, like, we want to explore doing those things instead of just buying another tool, potentially getting locked into an annual 2-year, 3-year agreement, right? When ultimately, like, that's not the underlying problem. And so you definitely want to think about what those gaps are and really examine, like, is software going to solve that gap?
Right.
Or what is the cause of that gap?
Okay. Yeah. So in that example, it was really diving down into what the perceived issue was. So obviously in that example,
especially because we already have a tool that does this, right?
In that
it's
example,
just that it wasn't enough.
Yeah, the poor audio and video it isn't a problem with the application per se. It's the quality of the video camera, or if somebody's using, a $10 microphone as opposed to a $200 microphone for the audio quality. So, all right, that's so creating a good benchmark of what you're actually trying to solve with the product, what it needs to be able to fix or provide features for.
Yeah. And then, so after you kind of have some idea of what it is specifically that you're looking for, and then we move on to the stage that I call Googling 101, which is like, let's figure out who is out there, like who all is in this field. And sometimes this part can take a while depending on what you're working on, because you'll start to figure out what the name is for the specific task you're trying to do, right? So like content management and marketing content management are slightly different niches, but those search terms will give you different results. And so like in the IT world, right, we have MDM, we have RMM, we have endpoint management. I don't even know what the acronym is for that one.
Well, there's unified endpoint management, which I've seen. I've seen a lot of mobile device management MDM platforms are rebranding themselves as being unified because they do more than just mobile.
Right. So I consider UEM, RMM, and MDM to be they're all sort of the same thing. And there are MDM platforms that I would consider more UEM. There's RMM platforms that I would consider more MDM. That's a very IT specific example, right? But that's true for everything.
Right.
So there's different kinds of content management. There's different kinds of like event marketing tech is like a whole subset of this stuff. But like in finance, there's that kind of thing too. And in SaaS apps, there is too, right? We talk about SaaS spend management tools. We talk about SaaS operations management. We talk about, SaaS automation, SaaS integrations. Like those are different niches and will give you different responses when you start Googling.
Yeah, I've been actually very surprised with searching for something like SaaS or SaaS applications. I get sponsored paid for links that are actually applications that I wouldn't really consider SaaS, or certainly to do something like SaaS management, which I've searched for. You see results come up which are paid for ads, which somebody might click on and start to follow down that road, but not realize that it's a bit of a red herring, a false direction in your research.
Yeah, and the other mistake I think people make when Googling is they get too reliant on the review sites. Right? Your Trust Radius, your G2, your Gartner, all of those that will list every possible app in a category, whether that category is broad or specific, right? And then those quadrants that people use to determine, like what the best is.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like to address the Gartner Quadrant in particular because they have two axes.
Well, hang on a second. Do I need to roll out the SaaS Showdown soapbox for you to stand on?
Yeah, you might want to for this one.
Okay, listeners, please stand by for a soapbox rant by Rose Layton.
So, in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, you have two axes. One is market presence, and one is user satisfaction. Okay, so you go from market presence, small to large, like how many customers do they have? And then you go to how satisfied are those customers? That's all the Gartner Magic Quadrant is. And when they present it in marketing materials, it makes it seem like things that are in that upper right corner are better. They're bigger and their users are satisfied. That is not mean that tool is the right tool for you.
Right, because you could choose a small company that had happy users. And you
could choose a small company that had happy users if you've got a good risk tolerance. If you needed something that was super like niche, but like there was only one company that was offering it and they didn't have great user satisfaction, well, guess what? You're going with those guys. So those quadrants, you got to be very careful with them. Okay. They will help you because they list a bunch of different options in a particular market niche. But
okay, that's great. Okay. Do you need help getting off the soapbox, or are you okay?
No, I got it. Okay. I got it.
All right. I'm going to put it away. All right, let's carry on. What else do we need to think about with choosing a SaaS application?
So after you have your basic list, of 4, 10, 12, 14, whatever, however many apps, you want to, number one, go to their websites. Make sure that they seem like they're in the right ballpark for solving your problem. And then you need to try to get your hands on a demo of the product. My preference is to have an unled demo. SaaS Ops Cat is behind me, sorry.
Yes.
She had a hard day. She went to the vet. My preference is to have like self-led demos. I prefer it when sites allow me free trials, when they allow me to have live demos, when I get to click around in the product. Because I have often found whenever I'm watching a demo that I will ooh and ah when somebody else is doing it because they know the product and they know where to take you. But then when I get in the product myself, I can get a little lost.
Okay.
Right. So and I can be like, this doesn't seem as usable as I thought it was.
Right. So if you were going to buy a new car, you wouldn't go to the car dealer and get the showroom manager to drive you around town, and you say, "Oh yeah, that was a comfortable ride. I'll buy that car."
You don't sit in the passenger seat and let them drive.
You want to be driving their car, and you want them to explain what all the buttons do as you're careering off of over the central reservation into a ravine.
I mean, sure. If that's going to be how you're going to test drive, then yes. But yeah, so I mean, you're exactly right. Like, it's different when you're driving it. Like you can feel it. You can you'll notice things that are different than if you were just sitting in a passenger seat watching somebody else do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that the steering wheel is a little bit hard or easy to turn. You'll notice that the shift is a little bit tough, or you'll notice that the mirror doesn't quite line up the way you need it to, or that back window is an odd shape or whatever, So the same is true for SaaS tools. Like if you can get your hands on a live demo, sometimes you have to do the demo and then the proof of concept, and get like a real, POC instance to play around in order to get that far. But it's so much better. It's so much better when companies offer live demos.
Yep.
On demand. Yep. I really wish more of them did it. But
okay, that's good. Yeah. Good to know. So after you've done the demo, and you've driven it around the block, what's the next thing to look for? Let's carry on with this car analogy that somehow we've adopted. I'm guessing you would look under the hood. You wouldn't just be okay with the shiny, freshly cleaned exterior. You're going to lift up the bonnet or the hood if you're in the UK. Oh no, hood. It's the hood here and it's the bonnet in the UK.
Yes, the hood in America, Colin.
I forget my being bilingual. I forget what the terminology is. So, what are some of the technical aspects that we should be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously this will depend on your technical proficiency. As you mentioned, like on the car analogy, if you're going to look under the hood is your next step. Well, if I look under a hood, I don't know shit about cars. And so I'm not going to see anything under the hood. Also, if you notice, they cover them now with these like
piece of plastic
covers. Yeah, it makes it look really nice and sleek and pretty and sure, but it doesn't help you see anything that's going on in the engine. But so you're going to want to look at specs, obviously. Like that's one of the big things, right? So like things like pricing, feature lists for those pricing. You'll want to look at basically the key areas of SaaS apps are the same things you really kind of want to look at, right? Like discover, manage, secure. Like, is it good? On the discovery piece, I just put like how easy it is to get your data in, right? Mm-hmm. How easy it is to connect your other data. Manage, like how easy is it to do the task you were meant to do? How easy is it to manage the users in that particular app? Like connected to your single sign-on systems, like that's really where like some of the usability features and things come in. And then secure is going to be all about like, security features, reporting, right, compliance, data retention policies.
So I heard you mention single sign-on. I'm assuming that is going to be a requirement.
I mean, it is for me.
It is
not
for me,
you, Colin?
Yes, yeah. We know it is. But let's delve into single sign-on.
I mean, let's talk about it. So there's different forms of single sign-on. You and I go back and forth about this because I don't mind if I have OAuth, mm-hmm, right? I don't mind having OAuth with Google, but you prefer SAML.
I do prefer SAML. I do like SAML.
Why do you prefer SAML?
Better logs in the Google admin panel for it.
That's fair.
It's easier to manage, I find, as an application for deployment. I don't know. I just for whatever reason, but yeah, single sign-on. Any application you get, SaaS-based application you get, should be able to use your current identity provider, whether it's Okta, G Suite, Office 365, or any other, SAML based provider, to be able to authenticate your users through that. Now, there is that horrible thing referred to as SSO tax. So, and one of the things you mentioned was thinking about price. Is that a thing to be aware of when looking for a SaaS-based application? Being aware.
I mean, absolutely, it is. I mean, it's and it is something to think about early on, right? So when you have that first list from your Googling and your professional networking, right? You have your giant list of all the possibilities and you start trying to whittle them down. I would consider pricing for key items like SSO to be like early deal breakers, right? And so when I'm doing something like a full app evaluation, I will like mark down, like requires enterprise for SSO or, something like that.
And something like with domain capture as well, whether app could capture any accounts that are trying to be created on their platform with a domain name that you have already said hang on a minute.
Especially if it's like a
own.
really common one, right? Yeah, you want that in your Trellos, your Boxes, your Dropboxes, your Zooms. You want
Slack.
that domain capture ability, things that people could reasonably sign up for and are likely to sign up for. Like domain capture is not optional. You need it.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna try and this won't make any sense to the listeners, but I'm gonna keep count on my fingers here for the key things that we need. So single sign-on and domain capture. Okay. Carrying on looking under the hood. What else are the things that we need to be aware of when choosing a new SaaS application?
Honestly, okay. So once I go from like the basics, SSO, pricing, domain capture, the next thing I'm looking for is usability, right? Every application on my list should be able to meet the problem that I'm trying to solve. So like, that's clearly the first thing you look at. Like, does this meet the problem I'm trying to solve? If the answer is no, don't continue. Just, kick them off the list. It's fine. Promise their feelings won't be hurt. There's plenty of people out there. But so then if it meets your criteria, let's look at some basic stuff, pricing, SSO, and then next I would look at usability, because the most expensive thing about a SaaS product is the implementation. And the longer it takes to implement, the longer it takes you to get ROI.
Yes, because if the application is terrible, it might do what you want it to do, but if your users don't want to use it because its implementation is terrible, they're not going to use it.
Time to learn how to use it and implement it. Like I run and scream whenever I see an application that's like, yeah, we'll use professional services and we'll have an implementation period of 6 to 9 weeks. And I'm like, I don't think so. If I can't implement this myself in like a month of like half-time work, then it probably doesn't belong in my organization. Why? Because I'm not going to be here forever. Somebody else is going to have to manage this baby.
Okay. Excellent. So we've got ease of implementation, domain capture, single sign-on.
Yep.
Excellent. How about connecting it into another program?
Oh yeah, integrations. Yeah, that's a good one for the next one.
Okay.
Yeah,
because the last thing you want is an application that's going to be isolated and have no interconnectivity with others. What sort of things should we be looking for to make that happen?
The stuff that's in your technology stack. I don't care if an application has 60 integrations. If none of those are the ones that I need in my life, then it's not worth using. But to your point, Colin, like if an application doesn't have any integrations or it has a very small number of integrations, that calls out to me that they have limitations on their API.
API, what's that?
Or they may not have an API.
Yes.
API stands for Application Programming Interface, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And it's basically a set of URLs that you can use to make changes in an application, specifically a SaaS application. But
yeah.
I think that's the smallest summary I can make.
Yes. Yeah.
APIs are the things that connect Slack to Google, right? They're the things that connect Google Drive to
any of the Chrome extensions that they use.
Literally any of them, right? It's what connects Zoom to my calendar. It's what, so anytime like you're dealing with something and it asks you to like authorize, chances are there's an API transaction happening there. There's a token being passed. There's an API transaction.
Okay.
And APIs are how automation works, and it's how modern IT works. And an application without public APIs is
right. So making sure the application, the SaaS application we choose, has a good, well documented public API that if we need to and we've got the technical skills, we can make use of, or we can use a professional services firm or another integration partner to make use of that to further add functionality within our organization. Yeah. Okay, great. What are the last couple of things that you can think of that our listeners should be aware of when choosing a SaaS application?
One of the big things that I think people neglect often is admin roles.
Yes, securing the application. How do you manage it?
Admin roles. Yeah, admin roles and logs, I think, are the two things that people neglect the most often. There are more admin roles than just super admin and user.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right. Like if you have a situation in an application where all of the admins could delete the entire instance and the users can't do anything, like it's a bit lopsided, and it's risky. Yeah. Right. I have a team of 12 people. We are not always all perfectly on the same page.
Yeah. I've got a team of 14, and any IT professional needs to be working on the principle of least privilege. Even with your closest best friends, you should still be working on the principle of least privilege. Mm-hmm. It's a sensible way. And I've actually not chosen a SaaS-based application purely because it didn't have a good any admin roles. It was super admin on their platform or view. And it's like, well, that's not going to work. Come back to me when you fixed it. And 18 months later, and they still really haven't fixed it. And I won't be a customer.
Well, and there's some applications, to be fair, that like, there's not a lot to admin, right? You're adding or removing users basically. Mm-hmm. And then like, there's like a billing owner, right? And that person is separate. Billing is one of the biggest things that I think needs to be separate from regular admins. But like, there are some instances in which I would accept an application that basically doesn't have very robust admin roles and controls, but not very many.
Right. Yes.
And that's just because like, as my team expands, as our work expands, as people tend to like specialize a little bit, right? Or even as we empower the users in our organization to manage certain things on their own, I don't want to be giving my head of facilities super admin access to my phone system, right? She doesn't need that.
No.
Just to manage a couple of departments and like forward people's numbers when they're on maternity leave. No, she doesn't need that. So, like the ability to tailor her access to the pieces that she needs is very important. And so like, that's just one example, but there's plenty of other reasons why you would need to like give somebody partial access.
Yes. Yeah.
Even just to one little thing, right? Like it's really dumb, I think, that you can't move files into like shared drives in Google.
Right.
You have the shared drives admin role.
Right. Yes. Yeah. The one thing I do like about Google Workspace admin, as an example, is the ability where you can create your own admin roles. You can have quite defined ones, and then you can give people those admin roles on a specific set of users based on the organizational unit. And that is a perfect, very good implementation of privileged access management. And the model is there for other companies to follow. It's just a shame that a lot of these new and emerging SaaS application companies, don't follow that model. Thinking, in our last few 10-ish minutes of our chat today, what's looking ahead at the future? What else should people think about for when they're choosing a SaaS-based application? I know there's one thing that I've always inquired about and looked for.
Well, why don't you share with us, Colin?
So that is the roadmap. Does this SaaS application company, their development team, have a roadmap? Do they have a public roadmap? Do they have a closed roadmap group that I can join?
Basically, do they have any roadmap that you can
do they
look
have
at?
any roadmap? Do they have an idea site and the ability to create feature suggestions, vote them up or down, which is there's a whole host of SaaS-based applications that will allow companies to post those sort of communities and gather that feedback about what people need. But the roadmap. It's a very important thing, I feel. So I think we had 6 things, didn't we? We had
6 things. Yeah.
SAML, domain capture, sort of like the same stuff. Reporting,
usability,
implementation, APIs, admin
roles,
privileges, and roadmap. There's about 6 or 7 things there that I've spread out.
Those are some core things. And obviously, like Colin, you and I have a very IT focused perspective on what's important in an app. But like the reason that I mention usability a lot when I'm talking about selecting a SaaS app is because that's the part that affects our users, I find. And so if I don't enjoy using the software, neither are they.
No,
right? It better be a delight for me.
Yes, yeah. And if you do get one of those trials, you can, grab a subsection of your users and ask them to look at the application, play around with it, work in it for a little bit, gain their feedback, what they like about it, what was the good points, what wasn't going to work from them. The one thing I've noticed in the demo options for these SaaS-based applications is some will only give you like a 7-day trial or a 14-day trial. I've noticed over the last 10 years, being very much focused on the SaaS industry, is 10 years ago you used to get it almost used to be like a 1-month trial, a 30-day trial of your applications. Now I see the default on the website is normally just like a 7-day or a 14-day trial. But I do think reaching out to those companies and speaking to a salesperson, a contact, and getting that trial extended is worth that conversation with them to fully evaluate the application that you're going to choose.
I agree.
I know there's some hesitation and problems sometimes seen with calling out those or speaking to a salesperson, feeling like you're going to get a hard sell and then be stuck with constant inquiries. But it's worthwhile to have a proper full evaluation. 7 days isn't enough time.
I don't think you can have a full evaluation really without speaking to a salesperson. You do need a live body to answer questions and to, be able to listen to the problem you're trying to solve. Occasionally they will speak honestly about whether or not they can solve it for you. So, and sometimes they'll even show you exactly how they would solve that problem. Colin, in the last couple of minutes, I wanted to ask you maybe a bit of a contentious question, but I'm sure our listeners will enjoy it. What is your biggest pet peeve from SaaS applications today?
Oh, I thought you were going to give me the choice of what's the best pet peeve.
Like when you're looking to buy a SaaS application, what is your biggest pet peeve? I can tell you mine.
Well, yeah, and I think I might even choose yours before you say it, so I can claim it as being mine. Paying more for SAML, paying more for single sign-on is my annoyance. The other annoyance that I really have, and I'll let you have that one. My biggest annoyance is not being able to easily export my data from the application.
I was gonna strip it all the way back.
You were going to go what?
Transparent pricing.
Oh, right. Yes. Oh,
I'm
where?
going to take it all the way back. Like, I don't care. The SAML, all of that. If they don't even have the pricing listed on the website.
Right. It's a non-starter.
I internally groan. I'm just like, I'll keep you off to the side in case one of these other people don't work out.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you and I have discussed this before, and we've spoken to some vendors openly that do publish their pricing, and they are very open about it. There is a small growing number, I think, of more forward-thinking SaaS applications that do that, which is great. I am less likely to call somebody for pricing because
there's so many places where I can just see it. Yeah, well, and this is what I tell companies, because I've talked to a lot of companies who, have questions about how we feel about their pricing or, whatever, but you have to publish something. Just ballpark it. That's what I want to see it for. I'm not doing like an exact ROI calculation based on the price on your website. I am looking to see roughly how much it costs. And even if you have enterprise versions, I would like that to be ballparked too.
Yep.
Like, just give it an estimate. And then if you offer discounts for education, government, or nonprofit, you should publish that on the page. Right. You don't have to publish how much the discount is. You should publish that it has a discount, because I'm willing to talk to you if I think you're going to give me a discount.
Yeah.
But because I work for a nonprofit right now. So like, it's very important to me. But, and before that, like, I started in IT and higher ed. So like, these are the companies who need SaaS the most, right? They're lagging behind. Government, higher ed, and nonprofits are lagging behind the rest of the world and the rest of the industries, right? For moving towards cloud. And maybe that's not true, post-pandemic, but are we post-pandemic? I'm not sure.
Hopefully.
Hopefully we're getting there. But those three industries in particular tend to be, very archaic. A lot of times they don't have their own IT. They have managed IT from a multi MSP. I can't even say what that means right now, but
managed service provider.
Managed service provider. Thank you. I was going to say multi-service provider, and I was like, that's not quite right. But yeah, so most of those kinds of organizations have MSPs or otherwise relying on very low budgets. Sometimes incredibly low budgets. And there are a lot of applications out there that are willing to help and willing to accommodate that. But you have to make it easier for people to figure that out, right? I've talked to vendors who will not budge on their pricing because they're either like super young and they need every dollar they can get, right? Or because they are so certain that their product is going to give me so much return on investment that they're just not willing to budge, which, by the way, no product ever has given me so much return on investment that it made up for the fact that we were a nonprofit. Right. Never. If your product costs more than Google.
Yes, yeah, there are. I will not buy it. There are those benchmark prices that a lot of us go by. But if it is very wise to have those prices available and being public and open. Like, I'm not going to go into if I'm walking along and I look at a nice restaurant and I see their menu and it's got a wonderful list of items, but there's no prices next to any of those entrees and appetizers. I'm not going to go in there.
$3 sign restaurant, Colin.
Yeah, that's I'm not going in. It's the same way with how we view our SaaS applications. So it's been great to chat with you again, Rose. I love these discussions. I hope people learn from that, learn from our experiences over a number of years for choosing the right SaaS application for your business. And we'll catch everybody again in the next episode of
SaaS Showdown.
Yes, the SaaS Showdown.
Produced by the Tab Geeks Network. Enjoy all of our shows on YouTube at youtube.com/tabgeeks. Join our exclusive, free, no sponsors allowed Slack community and sign up for our newsletter at tabgeeks.com.